Hey, you guys, this is your girl, Coach Ebony Nicole, the Vice President of the Rochester Black Authors Association. I am here with another episode of the Black Authors Rock podcast, and I am excited. Now, I know I always say I'm excited for everyone, but I am truly excited for this one because I know this author, okay? She is an amazing woman who wears many hats, but they are not going to weigh her down. She handles it with grace. She accomplishes what she sets out to do. And I know there is nothing but greater coming out of this woman. The Bible tells the parable about, or Jesus tells us the parable about the man that gives the many talents, the 10, the 5, and the 1. She's the 10 talented one. And she not playing. She got a lot of talents. So, without further ado, you know what I always say, I want you guys to subscribe, click that bell so that you know when we have new videos of authors dropping. I also want you to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. And if you want to join us to be on the show as an author, a writer, or a publisher, no worries. I'm going to drop all that information at the end. So, my girl, Verkeya, I want you
Ebony.
to brag about you, girl. Tell people who you are and where you're not calling, but where you're calling in from. I don't know why I want to say calling, so I'm just gonna say calling.
Hi, everybody. You had me in tears. I was like, oh my God. So, hi, everybody. My name is Verkeel Annise. I am an author, as Ebony said. She actually helped me publish my first novel, Intertwined, in 2020 on my birthday. It was released, and that was super exciting for me. As Ebony said, I wear very many hats. I am the founder and the president of Verkeya Speaks, Inc., which is my nonprofit organization here in New York, New York. We are in New York City. We serve the 5 boroughs: Manhattan, the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island. And our mission is to empower women of all ages of color in the 5 boroughs. So we do that by workshop series, online events, and very specifically and most importantly, our scholarship program. So we are very
Yes.
excited about the work that we're doing in the community. We've been working really hard getting the word out there about who we are and what we're doing so that we can have many applicants to choose from at scholarship time. So the applications are out on our website at verkeyaspeaks.com, and we are just waiting eagerly for those applications to come. I am a mom.
Mm-hmm.
I am a mom of a baby angel, and I am a mother of a vibrant, healthy, talkative,
Okay.
fun-loving 6-year-old who politely told me, Mommy, I'm a big boy. I could do it myself this morning. So I was like, oh, okay.
Well,
So,
hello.
all the time. So, I'm parenting, and as I'm parenting, I'm walking through this journey of author entrepreneur, and it's been very fulfilling but very exhausting all at the same time.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I've had to learn to ask for help. I've had
Yes.
to learn to delegate, and I've
Mm-hmm.
had to learn to accept the help, right? Because we can ask for it, but if we don't accept it,
Like,
then
yeah, I'll help you. Oh, can you help me? Yes, I'll help you, but I don't really know if I can give this to you. Let me find something else. And then
right,
out of 10 things, you find none to delegate to
right,
somebody else.
right.
That's
So
no problem.
learning to actually take the help
Yep.
is the most important part. So that's who I am. I'm sure there are many more facets and hats that I wear and who I am as a person, but oh my gosh, we'll be here all day.
Listen, you have told us enough. Okay. So I got a lot of questions.
Sure.
One, you did go in about your organization. So tell us about, you said you service women in the 5 boroughs of New York, and it's specifically Black women, and you have a scholarship. Tell us about this scholarship because
Okay.
hopefully we can get people to, when they hear this, they're like, you know what? I know a young lady that will qualify for this. So I've seen you do it last year with your
Mhm.
winner. She was going off to college.
Mhm.
So yeah, let's talk about that.
So we have 3 scholarships. The scholarship that we gave away last year was the Lieutenant Veronica Jackson Scholarship, and that is actually my mom, whom it's named after. She's a retired military personnel, and I'm so glad she is retired.
Wait, what was that? What was that?
Well, people don't understand. Like, my mother is Air Force Reserves, and while she was in the reserve, she did get called to duty. And so my mom has served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and in Germany. And it's stressful. It's very stressful because you can't just pick up the phone and call every day. That's not how that works. And at those times, it's like you try not to watch the news and all of those things because it makes you anxious. You hear, oh, this place got bombed today. And it's like, was my mother there? And my mother is a nurse as a civilian, a nurse administrator, but she's also a nurse in the military. So she's so she's the person who goes and like helps when people are hurt, whether they're people that are from the country or they're military. So yes.
So tell her what she's seen.
Yeah, we don't talk about it. That's not something that we have a whole lot of conversation about. I do remember her asking her about PTSD and if she ever had any symptoms once, and she was like, only one time did she feel like that was something that she was experiencing. And I was like, oh, okay. And so, it was a very short-lived conversation, but it is something that she really talks about. But my mom is awesome in the sense that she got all of her higher ed degrees while being a mother of 3 and a wife and working. And so to me, that was something to aspire to. She had a lot of challenges academically, as well as, the social, emotional, just being a mom and trying to go to school is rough because you got to make sure your kids are good, but you also want to get good grades, right? So, our first scholarship was named after her. So it's for young women of color, Black, Latina, who have overcome academic or personal hardship while in high school. And so we wanted to give that specifically to them. And our first scholarship recipient, I'm so proud of her. Her name is Anaya. She graduated from Thurgood Marshall Academy in Harlem, and now she is attending Morgan State University, and she's in her freshman year, doing well, and I'm so happy for her and all that she's accomplished. We've added 2 new scholarships. One is the Misha Davis Award, and that's awarded to a young woman who is interested in going into vocational training, because we understand that everybody does not want to go to college, and college isn't for everybody. And so we want to be mindful of those things. And that's why that's scholarship was created. Misha Davis is a super amazing woman who beat cancer twice while being an iron worker. And so
come on here.
She is dope, beyond dope. And so I'm so excited to name that scholarship for her. And our last one is named after my high school English teacher, who I still have a relationship with, and who is like my other mother and constantly is, mothering and mentoring and encouraging. And I'll say it like that, because she does all 3. And I appreciate her presence and her allowing me to continue to have a relationship post high school, and also to have a relationship with my son. And so I appreciate her for that. She taught in the New York City public school system for 35 years. And she's still actually, she's substitute teaching. And so, she does it per diem, and it's wonderful because she still has a heart for education and a heart for young people. And I applaud her in all that she has done and all that she has done for me. If it were not for her, I would not have gone to college. I wouldn't have.
And that's a beautiful thing. Teachers don't know the impact that they make at that point with us as students. They don't know, but their impact is felt from us throughout the course of our whole lives.
Absolutely.
So that's why it's so important. I love great teachers. It's like you are with us at these fragile points in our lives, middle school, elementary a little fragile. Middle school, you don't quite know who you are.
Ooh.
And then high school, you think you know who you are, but it's not until you go to college and you realize this is who I am.
And
And then
even
that's
in
who you present to the
college,
rest of the world.
right? But even in college, I feel like we're still emerging as the people we're becoming. I don't
Yeah,
really
towards
feel like,
the in the beginning, like freshman and sophomore, and then junior, senior especially. This is who I am, and when I leave here, I'll launch out and
I
help further that person. Or you think it's more?
I I
You think it's
think
a 4 year of learning?
I
Oh, not
feel
only
like
learning, but
I didn't get full grasp of who I really, really was until graduate school.
oh wow, okay,
Graduate school really gave me clarity on who I really knew I was and who I wanted to be.
gotcha, gotcha.
Like, it was something about that particular period of time. And actually, that was one of the times my mom was away serving in the military. And yeah, so like actually that first semester of grad school, my mom was deploying.
Oh
And
my
so
goodness.
yeah, it was like, this is not really happening. So like,
Right. So you got to
you know,
focus on schoolwork and try not to worry about your mom being so far away.
right.
So I have a question. What inspired the organization? Where did that
Mhm.
birth from? Where did that come from?
So Verkeya Speaks was birthed out of a very difficult, tumultuous period in my life where I was going through fertility treatments. I was having difficulty getting pregnant. I actually had a miscarriage in 2011, and I actually was
Mm.
diagnosed with lupus all at the same time, right? So I had the
Mm.
miscarriage in May, and then shortly thereafter, I went to see a neurologist, and she somehow put all the dots together, and I was diagnosed with lupus. And then I went to see my GYN, and she was like, "Listen, if you don't get pregnant in 6 months, let's go see some doctors and get some testing." And I was like, oh boy, this is where we're going with this. Like, this cannot be happening, because I had
Mm.
no one in my community, in my immediate
Yeah.
community, who had gone through anything like this. Everybody just got pregnant naturally. Nobody talked
Oh
about
wow.
that. So, um, and I'm saying naturally, but I'm meaning without intervention, right? Because
Okay. Yeah.
but I it was hard. It was like,
Yeah.
what do I do with this? Who do I talk to? And,
Wow.
it was really rough. And then I did 3 rounds of IUI. The last one, we got
IUI.
pregnant.
What's that?
Yes. So IUI is intrauterine insemination. And that's basically where they give you a lot of medication to have all of the eggs that you have come to the surface of your ovaries. And then they put the sperm directly into the uterus in hopes
Hmm.
that eggs will be fertilized.
Okay.
The last time one did get fertilized, however, it wasn't growing properly. And
Hmm.
so that was miscarriage number 2. And by
Mm.
that
My
time,
God.
I was like, okay, I don't know how much more I can take of this. It's the
Hmm.
emotional
Hmm.
roller coaster. Um, we did IVF. I was pregnant. It was great. 27 weeks of pregnancy. I lost my son, Caleb. It was very heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And, it's something that you don't ever get over. You just learn to live
Hmm.
with, as any
Hmm.
other death that anybody
Yeah.
experiences, right? And then that whole situation of child loss and infertility, I wanted to create community, and I wanted to allow people to have those hard conversations out loud,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
people weren't talking about it. It was like this thing that
Yeah.
was happening. Nobody was saying anything.
Yeah.
Nobody wanted to talk about it. I remember the anniversary
Private
after.
situation. Oh.
And I understand that in our culture, it's, we don't talk about our business in the street. Don't be putting your
Yeah. What
business,
goes on
you
in my
know,
house, you don't tell
say,
nobody.
don't air your dirty laundry, all those good
Yeah.
sayings. But how do people heal if we don't have the conversations? And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
Verkeya Speaks was created to begin some of those tough conversations, which we're still doing. We have online events where we have those hard conversations. And I wanted to do a little bit more for the community and something for the young people, because I have a heart for young people. I've always worked with the youth and young adult population. And so that's where our 6-week workshop series came into play. And unfortunately, due to COVID, it was cut short. But then the scholarship piece came into play, and it's just been going and picking up from there. But there was a point where I was like, I can't do this by myself. I need help. So what do I do? And that's how we ended up becoming a nonprofit organization last year in April. And me, asking a few good people, would they be interested in working with me? So yes, that's how it came to be.
And so since you said that, you got to find that way to delegate things to people, have you been able to delegate to the board?
I have learned to ask them to step in. The good thing about the people on my board is that they have takeover spirits.
Okay, good.
And in some instances, that would drive me nuts. In this particular instance, it's great, because I'm like, okay, fine, you're gonna do it, great. I don't have to think about it.
That's less,
it's less for me to think about. I can focus on the ground stuff, and and they all are experts at certain things in their own way. And so I'm allowing them to use their expertise that I could already see when I asked them to join me, right? And put it to the test. And so they're doing everything and more that I could possibly and potentially ask them to do. And I'm very grateful to all of them for stepping up and saying, you know what, this is something good and we want to be a part of it. Because some people are like, no, I can't do that, and that's okay. Because sometimes it's about timing, right? Like, I can't do it right now
too
because
much
I have
on their plate and things
exactly.
like that.
So, I'm appreciative for the persons that I've asked, and that they're making time for this.
Yes, absolutely.
On top of all of the other things they've got going on. So yeah.
That happens when you come to someone with a clear vision, a mission, and a purpose that you believe in, and then they are able to say, you know what, I believe in what you're doing. I can certainly lend my expertise to your team, to whatever it is that you're pushing to forward to do. And that comes with having a vision. Because if you can't cast that vision, then no one else can take it. The Bible says, write the vision, make it plain upon tablets, so that he who sees it can take it and run. But if you don't make a vision clear, then they can't write it down and run with it.
Absolutely. And the clearest part of all of this for me was, I told them, I said, I don't want to do too much too soon. Because after I'm ready to sit down, I want this to be able to continue to run.
That's right. That's pretty good. Because sometimes you gotta have it. It's like having systems in place that where the business or organization can function, even if you aren't in a position to actually physically, mentally, emotionally function within it. So that's a great feat to go towards, because that gives the organization longevity.
Absolutely.
Like a lot of organizations that's been around hundreds of years, clearly the person that started it's not here, but they structured it in a way that it will thrive, continue, and survive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing is that you don't want to do a bunch of stuff good. You want to do a few things spectacular. And so that's my thing. I don't want to do too much of nothing. I want to do some really good small things and pace myself throughout the year so that it makes sense. And so that's what we've been trying to do, narrowing down what things we're going to do annually. And we've kind of like gotten some of those things in place, bringing back some things because hopefully COVID will simmer down and go away. And really make a impact and do some good work in the community. And that's our goal. Yeah.
So what is it that you are hoping that Verkeya Speaks will be able to do? Like, let's say this year, what are you looking to do this year?
Our major goals this year are to give away 3 scholarships between $5,000 and $1,000 each to 3 young women of color in the New York City area. Our goals are to give away 5 journal giveaway, and that's to 5 young women who are preteens in the New York City area. And then in the fall, give away 5 snack boxes to 5 freshman young women who have started college but are living away from home. And we have some online events that we're doing, talking about our like racism and, you know, the grief and the trauma and where is it going? How are we healing? So that's coming up in February. I have 2 great speakers that are going to join me in that
I
conversation.
saw that. I saw you post on that. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm really excited about that. We have our open mic night, which we do every so often. I try to do it twice a year because everybody loves open mic night.
Yeah.
And we try to change it up and have different, you know, folks come in and do different things. And it's been really good. We have a nice following for open mic night. And then in May, I always try to do something for the moms or around being a mom because that's so super important for me. And so this year we're talking about postpartum depression and anxiety.
Yeah.
Because it's such a hot topic and
It is.
And it's such a real topic. So I'm going to grab some women to have a conversation around that. And then, you know, we have our gala in June, which is super huge. And so tickets are already on sale. We have our early bird tickets on sale. And that is such a huge undertaking. So we're really working to get some sponsorship going for it and just have a celebration of our first year as a nonprofit organization, to honor our young women and their, you know, who are receiving the scholarships, and hopefully honoring a particular woman who's done some pretty dope things, is a native New Yorker and still lives here in the community and is a proprietor of an establishment in the community. That's all I can say about that, because that's still in the works. I'm not allowed to publicly speak on that. So we're hoping to honor her because we want our young women to see what is possible, right? Like, if we don't show them what's possible or show them what they can become, how do they know that they can do it?
That's right. We gotta just like being a trailblazer. You can blaze the trail, but also leave the, you know, points of direction for those that are going to come up behind you so that they can follow you effectively, not be like you, but at least take that path. And they can see, you know what, she did this 4 years ago. She laid the groundwork. I'm going to run behind her and do the same.
Absolutely.
So yeah, somebody have to see that it's been done to get that faith and favor. So what I'm going to do also, I'm going to make sure you guys do not worry. She dropped a lot of information, but I'm going to get the dates from her. And so I will make sure to share those dates with you all. So if there's anyone you know down in the New York City area that can benefit from her organization, can attend these different events, either online or in person, we want to make sure you all do so.
Absolutely.
So we're going to shift because this is the Black Authors Rock podcast, okay? And although we are celebrating all things that authors do beyond the book, the entrepreneurship journey. So what started you on your journey to becoming an author? What made you say, because your book was published in 2020, but I think we started in 2019.
Yeah, and that book was actually started way before I met you.
Really?
Yeah. So it's kind of ironic because I'm sitting in my childhood bedroom and right behind me is like this window. And that's where I used to sit and write as a preteen.
Really? Come on. You got, okay, side note. I want to tell you, take a picture of yourself. I don't know if it's probably cold right now, but because we're both in New York. I think I had for Easter.
Yeah.
So this summer, take some pictures out there if you can.
I definitely will try to do that. No, my son's father hates when I sit out there, and I haven't sat out there in many, many years actually. But I started writing in junior high school. I definitely found Maya Angelou, or maybe she found me, and her book of poetry. And, you know, I really got into writing poetry, and a lot of the poetry that I have, like, I still have like my 7th grade, 8th grade handwriting. Like, it's crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's exciting. And I watched my writing evolve. And I started writing intertwined 10 years before it was actually out. Like that, it was 10 years of it being lost, of it being erased, like midstream. I don't know if you remember, at one point Caden had broken the flash drive because he dropped the laptop.
Yeah,
and I like
I
put the
remember
whole
that.
project
Yeah,
down in the
yeah,
middle of the process for like a
yeah.
month. And you
Because
were
it
like,
was too much
what?
to handle.
You
Yeah.
were like, what is going on? And I was like, I can't do
No.
this right now. I just
Yeah.
can't. And so while it took me 10 years, it was a beautiful journey. And it needed to take that long because there were things that happened in that time frame where the last particular story, I scrapped the whole thing and started over. And so, it was amazing and beautiful as to what Amy and Brian's story turned out to be.
Yeah.
And I really was thankful that it took that long, because that story was something totally different. And I was like, you know what? This ain't it. So
Ooh, come on. That's really good.
I'm a social worker by trade, and my goal in writing the book was to bring those hard conversations, those hard topics to light. And I remember asking you, like, when you're reading it, can you think of discussion questions to put in the back of the book?
Yep.
Because my goal was, and my hope was, that people would read it as a group and start conversation around some of those hard topics. It's easy to talk about things that aren't really real, but are real.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the fiction that I write is steeped in the reality of people's lives. And so because in my 9 to 5 I was seeing a lot of domestic violence cases, I wanted to add an element of that into the book. And so that was really a blessing in disguise, that it did take that long and it took that journey. And so,
because you were able to make it even more so realistic. All those fiction, it makes it more realistic and gives you that time, the opportunity to sit back and say, you know what, I need something more powerful than this.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, everybody hates Brian. Everybody hates Brian, right? Like, I remember one day you were like, oh my God, I am so mad at this. I remember that. And I was like, the fact that people were able to have visceral, but seriously, but the fact that people were able to have visceral emotion told me that I did my job well, because that's what I wanted. But I wanted there to be a point where you found your compassion for him. And so there's a point where he's on his knees praying. And he's like, he says this line, like, I remember he's talking about his mother and her life. And he's like, I didn't know who that person was until I looked at him. It's like he's seeing himself, and he was like, that person was me. And like, there's some powerful moments where you're like, somebody texted me, like, I couldn't finish that book because it was triggering for me. And they had a
that's actually a reason why they should read it.
But they had a personal reason, a personal experience around intimate partner violence, and it was just triggering them. And so, I told them, I said, I understand, when you're ready, finish it. But in the meantime, go to therapy if you're not in therapy already.
Absolutely.
And so, and I put elements of therapy in the book because I know how important that is for people to acknowledge that we are Black, and yes, we know Jesus, but Jesus gives people knowledge and power. And so use that if you sick, you're gonna go to see your primary care physician or the specialist. So that's what mental health professionals are. They're specialists.
Right. I love Jesus. I need Jesus. I like my therapist, and I need her too.
And that's all. And so I wanted to really bring to light some of those elements. There's elements of child loss and infertility. There are so many different things. There are interracial couples, same-sex couples, there's elements of grief, loss, and bereavement because that's something that happens every day. We lose our
Absolutely.
elders. Those are things that are happening. And so I kind of wanted to find different ways, to bring up parent-child conflict, but not as small children, but as adults, because people still
Because
fighting with
that
their
right there,
mamas.
listen,
It's
some some
true.
some men don't like their some men still don't like their daddies. Some men still don't like their mothers, and vice versa when it comes to women and their parents. It's real. It's real. It doesn't that childhood animosity does not go away when you become an adult. In fact, for some, it's amplified because I'm out your home. I take care of myself. I'm an adult now, and I'm going to share with you the thoughts that I had when I lived under your roof and you were taking care of me.
Right. And not only that, but as a mom and as moms, we have hopes and dreams and expectations for
Yes.
our children. And when we feel like they're not meeting them, it does something to us, right? And
Yeah.
so I mean, my son is 6. The child that I'm raising is 6. But I do understand that feeling of loss when you have hopes and dreams for a child and they're taken away because he passed away, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I can imagine what it's like for a parent to have hopes and dreams for their child and they grow up to do nothing like what
Yeah.
they hoped and thought for them, or they're dating
Yeah.
somebody that they don't quite approve of, or whatever the
Yeah.
case may be. And parents have their opinions about our lives, but we have to live our lives on our own terms. And they have to get to
Absolutely.
a point where they start to cut those ties. And so just really hoping that people read and intertwined as a group and have some of those hard conversations, and maybe it prompts some woman or some man to have that hard conversation with their parent about the relationship or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Or maybe some woman is suffering around infertility and child loss and she hasn't talked
And
about
she,
it, but
mm-hmm.
she finds a way and finds somebody that she can have that conversation with. Maybe somebody's dealing with DV and maybe it's not physical intimate partner violence. Maybe it's emotional. maybe
So
it's
many
maybe it's
levels. Yeah.
verbal. Yeah, maybe it's
Yep.
verbal. Maybe it's financial. Maybe
Yes.
she
Yes.
sees that and she's like, I don't know if I can do this anymore. Let me go find some
Yeah.
help. And so my hope and my goal is that people find the help that they're looking for and that they need.
So they're not only being this is what I love about your writing is that you get a fictional story. You're entertained, but while you're being entertained, just that slide of additional, I don't know what to even call it. It's like a trick of the hand. They don't even see it like, oh, this is a good book. But I'm also thinking about this got me thinking.
Mm,
I don't even know what to call it. I don't even know what to call it. But it happens. Because
yeah,
you can read it, but something in you, if you can really relate to the characters, then whatever you're supposed to get, you're getting. And then it's
absolutely.
hopeful when you get in the back of the book and you reading those questions, you know what? I like this. I like that. I can answer this. I'm ready to answer that. And you know what? I do need therapy. I do need to cut off this tie. I am still suffering from this traumatic event and it's now trickling into other areas of my life. It gives you that space to not only enjoy the book, but to also take a deep dive and look into yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, you know, there were moments that I was just like, ugh, because I added poetry from childhood, young adulthood to the book that went well.
Mhm.
That wasn't the initial intent, but I was like, how do I incorporate my writing beginnings into this book? And I was able to do that through a character, and it worked so well, and it
Yeah.
really gave me pause, to
Hmm. Hmm.
reflect on where I had gone and where I had
Yep.
come from, and some of the uncomfortable moments in my life that I had experienced, where I was just like, "Whew, that was tough." But I'm glad I'm still here to tell the tale, right? Because that's what we forget.
Absolutely.
We have to be like, okay, it was hard, it was difficult, but I'm still here to tell the tale. And maybe me
That's right.
telling my story is going to help somebody else. And that's what we
That's
have
right.
to do. We have to help other people.
And that's why it's important. I would say it's to any author that's listening, a writer, if you're aspiring to become an author, you're just like, I'm not ready yet. I don't want to tell my story, all these things. it's not for you. It's just once you release it, you don't know who you're going to touch. You don't know
Absolutely.
what revelation you're going to bring to them. So I would encourage any author, as I always say, get the book done. Just do it, and
Absolutely.
then release it to the masses, because there are people literally lined up for your book that don't even know they need your book until they need your book.
Yeah.
So, Verkeya, we got one book in. I wonder if there's going to be a book two. I
See, what had
wonder.
happened was some of the characters from Intertwined come back as background characters in Entangled. And so what I didn't say in the beginning
What's
is that
Entangled?
so
What's
Entangled
that?
is my sophomore novel. Can't believe it, right? And so the irony of it is this. So Intertwined, a lot of the characters are interrelated throughout the 4 stories that there are. And so I did that on purpose because while there are 4 separate stories, I wanted there to be some connections. And
That's
so,
the right that connect them. Yeah.
Right. And so Entangled is very similar in that way. And I think as an author, sometimes you find your style and you stick with it. And I think that that formula for me is working. And so there are 4 separate couples in Entangled, but their stories are intertwined, and they all end up at one pivotal moment in time. And so I say that because I wrote Entangled in the pandemic about the pandemic.
Yeah.
And there were 2 pandemics happening, right? There was COVID, and then it was the loss of Black lives at the hands of, of police officers and all of those things. And so I really delved into a lot of that, but still keeping some of those hard topics that we don't necessarily talk about in the book. And so there's the element of blended families, because that's an important topic for me. There's a character who has lupus, which is really hard for me to write.
Yeah.
That was, I would say, the most difficult part of Entangled for me.
Why so?
Because essentially there were moments where I was talking about my own fears about the inevitable. And, there are moments where I didn't want to go to the hospital during the pandemic when I really needed to go to the hospital during the pandemic. There were moments where I've sat and thought about what it would be like if, God forbid, things went completely south and I had to leave my son behind here on earth. And so in writing this book, a lot of those thoughts came to mind as I wrote. And so it was pretty rough. It was really, really hard to do. And initially I was not going to have that character have lupus. She was going to have another autoimmune disease, but I think God wanted me to face my fears and have me know that I don't get to write my story, in the sense that he's in control of how long I'm here on earth.
That's right. Yeah.
And so I don't know when it's going to happen. And so in the meantime, face the fear. It's going to be okay. And so for me, that was a really powerful moment. And the universal point and pivotal moment that all of the characters end up at is an actual real event. So throughout the pandemic, my younger brother, Pastor Key, spoke at a peaceful protest that my cousin Ebony, I don't even know, organized. That's the word I want to use. And so I utilized part of his real speech.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In the book. And so there are a lot of real elements. And so, and honestly, a lot of the people in Entangled are kind of patterned after real folks in my life. Real so people. Like my sister is a singer, and so she kind of like gets named in the book in a way, in a way where one of the characters is like her backup singer. You know what I mean? So like I utilize real people in a fictional book this time because I really wanted to bring that element of reality. And if you're interested in seeing any portion of my brother's speech, you can go on it's on Instagram and on Facebook. Verkeya Speaks on Facebook, and then Verkeya _Speaks on Instagram, or Harlem Book Girl on Instagram as well. And you can see a portion of his speech. It was beautiful for me to see my younger brother do something so powerful. And I remember standing there and crying because I was proud as a big sister, but I knew my grandparents who had passed away were there with us. Like I could feel their presence. And so Untitled is very much dedicated to my ancestors, and those people who helped grow me as a person. And so I've named a lot of those folks, and I am super and ever grateful. Some of them are still with us, thank God, especially after Corona and crazy. Right. So I'm really happy about that. And one of my uncles, my great uncle, did pass throughout the pandemic. And so, you know, as I wrote some of the characters, I wrote them patterned after some of my great aunts and uncles, and like, you know, and my grandmother, who was a first lady. And, you know, this was very different than Intertwined, because Entangled kind of just poured out.
And that was more of life, real life, transformed into a fictional story.
And while it was hard, just talking about like the things that we want to make our parents proud, but we're not sure that our choices jive with what they believe, being Christians, and like, you know, the expectations of our parents, and how we deal with those expectations, and how we deal with lifelong friendships. And sometimes our friendships end, and that's okay, or they take a different turn, and that's okay. And just thinking about all of those different things and the elements that I added into the book. And you know, I did not read Intertwined from cover to cover, but I did read Entangled from cover to cover. And when I tell you, I got emotional reading it. And I was just like, you know, it brought me back to some of those moments where I was penning it, but then also some of those moments that I experienced throughout the pandemic. And just like,
it's fresh, it becomes fresh again. And because you know what, when you remember, when I always encourage authors to get the proof of their book and read it again, because you can see a lot of different things as you are holding the physical book. But it not only that, it also allows you to say, you know what, do I want to add this, or should I add more? Should I revamp this or not? So that's a great thing that you have done, was reading it again. I'm trying to think, which of my books have I read since writing them? None, actually.
And honestly,
I don't think I have.
It was so funny because I was reading it to make the last correction. So when I met with you, we could go over, you know, the corrections that needed to be made. But it was powerful for me to actually read it, because like I said, it just brought me back to the moments where I was writing. There was some tragedies that happened even in my personal life where I was just like, oh, it kind of pulled up some stuff for me, and I had to kind of like, and so like, you know, people may go on my Instagram and see me promoting and see the pictures of me like reading the book on the train. And it's like, I was legit reading on the train, and like, it wasn't just a posed picture. You know, those moments, those highlighted marks that you see when I flip through the book and in the wheel, those things are real, because those are the corrections that need to be made. And so, you know, I remember when I finished Intertwined, and people were like, when's the next one? And I was like, whoa, whoa,
Right.
whoa.
Like, wait,
Wait a minute.
let me enjoy this one. It's like when you have one baby and people are like, so when you have another one, wait a minute, this one's
Talk
still
about it.
pooping in diapers.
Talk about it. Talk
This one
about it.
can barely say banana. Like,
Stop monitoring my uterus, please.
yeah.
But I actually had started like so it was after the book release party, the online book release party,
Yes.
that I did start the next book. But when I tell you, the start was maybe 4 sentences. It wasn't anything. It wasn't any real meat and potatoes. And I was trying to decide at that moment if I wanted to make some of these characters forefront characters, or or put them in the background, or write about some of the characters in the book and what that would look like, because a lot of people had questions around Brian's mother's story.
Oh wow.
And I wasn't
So
ready to write
sounds
Brian's
like
mother's
you're gonna
story.
have to do some intertwined, entangled.
I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know. I don't know what that looked like. But
seems like
I have written a 3rd book already, and I'm working on it. Yes.
How? See,
It's
now
a
I'm
children's
jealous.
book though, but it's a children's
I'm
book.
jealous.
It's
We
a
out here,
children's book.
authors, aspiring authors, and seasoned authors like myself. She didn't even birth the 2nd book, and she's thinking about having a 3rd.
I actually
No. She's actually in the process.
Yes, I'm in process. The third book is a children's book, and it's completed. And I am working with an illustrator, and he's working on the illustration. So that's where that is in process.
That's awesome.
And so I'm not, don't ask me about book number 4, because you're going to get the dull look. Because I's not ready yet. But people have asked various different questions. When are you writing your memoir? I don't know. I'm not ready yet.
I don't know. It's kind of like, ask me not one more again, but ask me one more again, and we're gonna have a brawl.
But we talked about the memoir, and
Okay.
I put some stuff on paper, but I have to be honest. Every time I start that, I scrap it, and I'm just like, it overwhelms me.
It is. It is overwhelming at times. I'm working on my own. Listen, this is one thing I tell people. It's your story, you know it in and out. But what happens when you are writing from reality, it pulls things out of you that you didn't even know, one was dormant, and 2 that you didn't even want to address at that point. So it can be, I'm gonna write my book, I'm gonna write my memoir. In 3 chapters in, you gotta write about something. You're like, you know what? Nah, I'm good. I'm gonna walk away from it.
Yeah. And that's where I think for me, it's like, when you write your memoir, okay, what specific things do I want to hit on? Yep. How do I connect those stories? And what does that part look like? And so for me, so much of my adult story is connected to my childhood story.
Okay.
And I'm just
as
like,
it would be.
I'm not
it's
sure.
Still you. It's linear. It's still, because it's still you.
Right. And so I'm not sure what that'll all look like, but I am sure that at some point it will happen.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I'm just gonna say, because we are almost out of time, and you answered quite a bit of my questions. So thank you. Because I was gonna ask you what's your next project coming up. So listen, you did fantastic to me. I'm not telling you, when I say I want people to brag, I mean brag. I personally don't see anything wrong with it. Put me on the spotlight. You wanna know who I am? Child, here you go. Because by
that's
the end,
so uncomfortable for me. It's really uncomfortable for me though. It's not. I am very good at talking, but talking about myself is really hard.
A lot of people struggle with it. A lot of people struggle with it. The more you do it, the more it'll come out easily. But
And
you
and
bragged here, so
I think for me, it's because I've been given opportunity
yeah.
to talk about some of these hard things that I've experienced in my life,
Mm-hmm.
and thankful to a former professor of mine who allowed me to come back to his classes to speak, in front of his classes. And that really gave me the comfortability to be able to share my story on podcasts, and in person and in classrooms, and and for my life to be a teaching tool. And so I'm thankful for those moments. And I'll be honest, my biggest goal in the next 5 years, because it's already been a goal for the last 5 years, is to do a TED Talk. That is one of my biggest goals.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years from now is one of my questions. Go right ahead.
I want to be doing a TED Talk. I want to be able to have a Oprah moment.
Come on. Which one? You get it. You get it. You get it.
No, I want to be in front of Oprah being interviewed.
Oh, okay. That Oprah moment. Gotcha.
Yes, but it would be lovely. It would be lovely to be able to say, I am in position to not only give away 3 scholarships to 3 young women in the New York City area, but to be able to give some money and grant money to women who are going through fertility treatments and need financial assistance. So,
that's expensive.
It very much is. And I was thankful and blessed to not have to pay money. I had great insurance, but that isn't everybody's story. And my hope is that at some point Verkeya Speaks can start a grant program specifically around that, where we can give grant money to women who are attempting, specifically women of color, again, because that's our population that we serve in the New York City area, to assist them with their treatments. I honestly and truly feel like, I was blessed in that I had good insurance, and the one big out-of-pocket cost, my grandfather, bless him, was like, here's the money. And so,
come on, Grandpa.
Thank God that I had him, because otherwise I don't know what would have happened.
It would have been, I think that's fantastic that is one of your goals. And I hope God blesses the organization bountifully so that you can help. You might want to do one woman, but God is a multiplier. So it might be like, okay, well, you want one, but I'm going to give you 4 additional. So it's 5 women that the organization is going to help. So I can't wait to see it. I am excited for this journey that you're on. And if people want to join your journey, if they want to, they're like, you know what? I like her. I like her spirit. I like her energy. I love her passion. How I am all for her purpose. If they want to connect with you, how would they do that?
So you can go to Facebook and go to Verkeya Speaks with an S at the end. You can go to Instagram at Verkeya_Speaks, or you can hit up at Harlem Book Girl. And you can find us at VerkeyaSpeaks.com. And so those are the ways you can get in contact with me. I may not always respond right away because I have a lovely little person that I am caring for. And sometimes a girl got to get some sleep, because if I don't sleep, then I have lupus flares. And so I am taking a cue from one of our mutual friends, Tiffany, and I have learned to set my phone for do not disturb between a certain amount of hours. I never used to do that, but last night I made a vow to myself that, you know what, I am going to take some time for me. And between 10 o'clock in the morning, 10 o'clock in the evening, and 7 o'clock in the morning.
That's my time. That's my time. Monday through Sunday through Thursday.
Every
10
day.
p.m. to 7 a.m. And then weekends, I just leave it open. On Saturdays and Fridays and Saturdays, it's just open.
Every day.
But those weekdays, nope. I shut down 10 o'clock. If it's an emergency, you know what? There's my
And
phone will still buzz, like, oh, it'll
yeah,
light up, but it won't. I can't hear it. So
right, right.
yeah, but that do not disturb is the best thing ever.
Yeah, so I'm learning to use it and utilize
Yeah,
it so that I can take better care of myself. Because if I'm not
absolutely.
okay as a mom, then my kid is not okay. If I'm not
Yep,
okay as a leader of an organization,
that's
it
right.
won't work well. If I'm not doing the best I can with my writing, it won't work well.
Yeah.
Look out, tomorrow we are doing a double good popcorn fundraiser. Shameless plug. That's my shameless plug. I'm so excited. And you can also buy both Entangled and Intertwined on my website. Entangled is up for pre-order. So
Yes, yes.
and hopefully, prayerfully, if Ebony and I can get it all done, it will be out very, very soon. So bear
Yes,
with
yes.
us. Bear with us.
Work
We got
in
lots going on.
progress. Work
Thank you
in
so
progress.
much for inviting me to
You
this.
are
I
very
am so
welcome.
thankful.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, Verkeya, for being here today on the Black Authors Rock podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, you guys heard her. She has so much to lay out. She's a woman who wears many hats but wears them gracefully. But the one thing she does do is take care of herself. So while you have yet to step into the authorpreneur journey or the authorship journey, just always make time to take care of you first, because if your head is not right, you cannot write. And so we want to make sure that the entire you is in a good place, in a good position. So make sure again that you subscribe to the Rochester Black Authors Association. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast, Black Authors Rock. Make sure you also follow us on Instagram at rock_BAA, on Facebook Rock BAA 21 or 2015. You have any questions, comments, or concerns, make sure you leave them down below and we will address them for you. If you want to be a guest on the show, go to our website, rockbaa.org, and register. It is completely free for you to do so. We just ask that you follow us, share our pages, and subscribe, and tell other authors to come check us out as well. And send over your followers so that they can check out the other authors that are on the platform. So that is all we have today, you guys. I am Ebony Nicole, the Vice President of the Rochester Black Authors Association. And it is, as always, my pleasure to be with you. Have a good one.